Let's begin topic 1, the basics of the calculator. So the first thing that I want to go over, and the reason that I've written 2 over 18, is I want to make sure that you understand how to use the calculator to simplify fractions. So if you go to your calculator and you type in 2 divided by 18, it's going to tell you that the answer is 0.11111. But that isn't going to help you, right? Because we're trying to get it into its simplest form. So what you can do is press Math. Now see that first option under 1 has a little arrow to a fraction. If you press Enter, what you can see is that it's going to convert the answer to a fraction. So you press Enter, and then you see that 2 over 18 is the same thing as 1 over 9. Next, 32 over 18, we're going to do the exact same way. So 32 divided by 18 is 1.77777, repeating, right? So same thing, press Math, convert it to a fraction, press Enter, and you can see that 32 over 18 is the same thing as 16 over 9. The calculator will always give you the answer in the simplest form. What about 3/4 quantity to the -3 power? Now, a lot of people struggle with exponents that are negative, right? They kind of have a hard time understanding that that's the same thing as flipping 3 over 4 and making it 4/3 and then cubing it, right? Again, that's a little bit complicated, so I want to show you how you can do it on the calculator. Do parenthesis 3 divided by 4, and then we just do to the power, so you do this little caret symbol. Then you want to do parentheses, -3, close parentheses. So what you're doing is telling the calculator to do the quantity 3/4 to the power of -3. Press Enter, and again, you see kind of this crazy number with a lot of decimals. So what can we do? You can press Math, fraction, and it'll convert it to the lowest form, 64 over 27, which again is the same thing as flipping the fraction and doing 4/3 to the power of 3. But again, understanding that concept, that's something we go over a lot in our exponents lesson, but negative exponents can really be confusing for students. So that's why I want to show you how you can do it on the calculator. How do we do 3 to the power of 3? You can literally press 3 to the power of 3 equals 27. The square root of 81. So the square root function is actually on the calculator. You can see it here in yellow, right? The square root. But if you look at the button is squared. So we don't want to press the button. We need to somehow access this yellow square root symbol. Notice up here, there's this yellow second button, right? So they will go together. So if first you press second, then you press the x squared button, what's going to happen is it's going to register the square root symbol. So second x squared is the same thing as pulling up that yellow square root. Now we can just type 81, close parentheses, equals 9. What about the cube root of 216? Well, if you look at those yellow symbols, right, we don't have a cube root anywhere. So that means it's hiding somewhere in one of these functions. So if you press Math, and if you scroll down to option 4, you can see that that is the cube root symbol. So you press Enter when you have the option 4 selected, and that will be the cube root. Now you can just type 216, close parentheses, Enter, and you can get the answer 6. What about the 5th root of 32? Now some people might know immediately that that's 2. Other people won't. So again, I want to make sure that you can use this tool of your calculator to help you if you don't intuitively automatically know that the 5th root of 32 is 2. Again, when we look at the calculator, even when we look at the yellow, even when we look at the green, there's no 5th root symbol, right? So again, it has to be hiding. So what you need to do is first press 5. Then go back to that math function. And if you go down now to the 5th option, you'll notice that it has a little X symbol next to the radical sign. The 5 that you typed before you went into that math section is going to register as that X. So if you now choose that option, you have a little 5 and then the Xth root. What you are telling your calculator is to do the 5th root, then you can do parentheses, 32, close parentheses, and you get your answer 2. Next one is the absolute value of 4. So you should know that an absolute value is always positive, right? It's defined as the distance from 0. But let's say that naturally that doesn't come to you right away and you need to use the calculator to help you. So how do we do the absolute value of 4? So you press the math button and then you click to the right. If you see kind of that top row, right, we have math, num, CPX, and then PRB for probability. We're going to go to that second option of num. And then if you see that the very first option there is ABS parenthesis, that means absolute value. So if you choose that first option, abs, parenthesis, all you have to do is put in the 4, close parenthesis, and you get that the absolute value of 4 is 4. Now we want to do the same thing, but with the absolute value of negative 4. So we'll do the same thing. We'll go to math, number, choose that first option of absolute value, type in negative 4, close parenthesis, press enter, and you can see that the absolute value of negative 4 is positive 4. Next, we're going to do something a little bit more complicated, but again, I want to show you that the calculator is smart, right? The calculator will follow order of operations as long as you type things in properly. So let's do 22 squared. So you can do 22. Now that squared button is on the calculator, right? So you can just press it right there. So 22 squared minus 19 squared plus 5,142. The calculator will do that work for you, and you get that the answer is 5,265. So what I want you to do now for this next box is I want you to learn how you can repeat a function that you have just entered. So it's really great. If you press second and then enter, you can see that it literally repeats exactly what you just typed. So let's say we did that problem and then we went, oh shoot, I meant to do plus 5140, something like that. You could really quickly do second enter. It'll repeat the function for you, and then you can just click to the left where the 2 is highlighted, change it to a 0, and then press enter, and then you can get that the answer is 5,263, right? So we repeated the prior function, and then we made a change, so what we added was 5,140 instead. All right, so it looks like in this next problem, we're finding the volume of a sphere, right? 4/3 pi r cubed is the equation for volume of a sphere. Again, great to do it on the calculator. So you can do parentheses, 4 divided by 3, close parentheses. Now let's find pi. You'll notice that pi is another one of those symbols that's in yellow. If you press the second, and then that button there where it normally looks like the up caret, right, where we use exponents, if you press it, you're going to get the pi. So we have 4/3 times pi, then we can do parentheses, times 2 close parentheses. Now you can either do caret 3 to do to the power of 3, or another place that exists is in the math. You go down to option 3, enter, and we have our answer. So it is 33.51. And then that's obviously a rounded answer, right? So that's an approximate answer. Now let's pretend that we solved that and then we went, oh shoot, my teacher wants me to leave the pi in the answer. So what we would need to do is to take this 33.51 and we want to divide the pi back out. So going back to our calculator, if we leave exactly what's there, if you just press divided by, notice that the calculator automatically pulls the answer that you just had down. So it has answer divided by, then you can do your pi again, the second pi button, and press enter. So then we get that our answer is 10 2/3 pi, right? So we originally had the pi in the equation. Then if we wanted to take it out, right, because we wanted an exact answer, this first answer was approximate, right, because we rounded. The second answer is exact. So we divided by pi, and then we were able to leave it in the answer. And technically, we should be writing units cubed for both of these because we're solving for volume. What about if it asks you to find the slope? This is a great review. First thing, I'm going to write it here in the lesson, and then we'll go ahead and do it on the calculator. Remember that the equation for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if we label our points, this is x1, y1, and this point is x2, y2. And again, we have a whole lesson on lines. We do a lot of discussion about slopes. So if you're feeling a little shaky with slopes or with equations of lines, you should definitely check out that lesson. All right, so how will we calculate slope? We will do y2 minus y1. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to underline the y's, and then I'm going to underline the x's because I just want to make sure that we're really, really clear. So we're going to do y2 minus y1, which is negative 1, minus 4, divided by, now I'm going to do the difference in my x's, x2, which is 3, minus negative 2. So be very careful when you have a minus minus. So let's say that we've written this out and that now you want to solve it on the calculator. We have to make sure that we have our numerator kind of within parentheses, divided by the denominator inside parentheses. So we'll do parentheses. Good review. How do we do a negative number? Negative 1 minus 4, close parenthesis, divided by, open parenthesis for the denominator. Remember that 3 minus negative 2 is the same thing as 3 plus 2, close parenthesis, and press enter, and you get that the slope is equal to negative 1. Next one, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Remember, we have a whole lesson on special right triangles. Remember that in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, what's opposite the 90 is 2x. That means that x is 5. Remember that what's opposite the 30 is equal to x. What's opposite the 60 is equal to x, which was 5 root 3. Again, understanding this relationship in 30, 60, 90 triangles is really important. So if you need a refresher, be sure to do the special right triangles lesson. So what I want to show you here is, let's pretend that you had to find the area of this triangle, let's say. And so the area of the triangle would be 1/2 times base times height. So what I want to show you how to do is, let's say you do 5 times root 3 in your calculator. So you do 5 second root 3. And you get that it's this number, right? 8.660254038, right? Continuing on from there. What I want to show you how to do is how to store a number, so that later when I'm doing a different equation, I don't have to type 8.660254038, right? I can somehow just type a letter, and that letter will mean 5 root 3. So let's go to our calculator. We have our 5 root 3, and how do we store a function? Or how do we store a number, excuse me. So we come down here where it says STO with an arrow. If I press STO with an arrow, notice that it automatically pulls down the answer. The answer converted to, now let's say I want to call it H. You literally can choose any of these letters that you want. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right? Any of these green letters you can store as 5 root 3. So let's say what's going to make sense to me intuitively is to store it as H, right? Because H is the height, and in this triangle, that is the height of the triangle. So how do I get to the H? I press the green alpha button, and then I go over to H, and notice that now it is storing it as H. So I can press enter, and now what has happened is that 5 root 3 has been stored as H. So now if I want to find the area, I can do 1/2 times the base, which was 5, times, and instead of doing 8.66 and writing all those numbers, instead of writing 5 root 3, I can press alpha, H, close parenthesis, and it will automatically pull that value for H into the equation, and then I know that the area is 21.65 units squared. So that concludes our introduction to the basics. Next, we'll do a little bit of arithmetic in topic 2.